tutorial. We'll start by opening the program file. Note that this F:, because that's the drive I'm using as my system from, F:, AZMAT directory is the user directory. All the user files are stored there. So I slide through there. So AZMAT, that directory is the one I have, whereas the program file is, in this case, I'm using Excel 2010. So under there, the folder AZMAT, folder or directory called AZMAT, that's where the program files are stored. So in here, azmat.xls is the main program file. So open as read-only, simple password to begin with here. Now it requires the AZMAT system password. This is necessary, in order to ensure that only authorized users are allowed to use AZMAT system. If you get it wrong, it will not let you use AZMAT system. You have 2 or 3 goes, basically. So in this case, the user ID, every user has 2-letter ID. I'm using AA. All my files, user files, will begin with AA. Password is also very simple. All these usernames, the password will be provided to you for all the files. There are more than 100 system files in AZMAT system, but you will have a very easy way of remembering all of them. I can show you that. So there we are ready now. It says all the AZMAT system menus there will be available from here, add-ins after that. And now it's just basically telling you that the add-ins will be here as soon as I click OK there. Click add-ins there. Before we do that, I'm just going to make this file so I can see all the Excel icons. Now the actual Excel commands are under add-ins. From there, then you can see all these menus are AZMAT system menus. J, K, and so on. That's every day when you start. I'm just going to close it for a second. This is your user file. It will be created for every new user automatically by AZMAT system. You do not have to create it automatically. When you first start using it, it will use your letter. In this case, AA. So I'm using a user ID is AA. So my user file, data file is AA.xlsx, or in earlier versions of Excel, it will be .xls. So first thing an investment bank, a dealer would do, bond dealer would do, is to ensure that the reference curves are updated. Okay, so the first thing you need to do here, add in, go under the K menu. That's where the curves, they're called curve files because they yield curve. Okay, so first thing you need to do is open it either for file edit or rates edit. We'll do it for rates edit only because this way, at this point, we only need to, so in this case, I'm using ZR USD.xlsx. I can enter all the full file name or just the 3-letter currency code. So I'll leave it there. That prompt is fine, which is this one, ZR USD.xlsx. Okay. So now you always give a message to the user to know what you're doing. The user mustn't interrupt this command while you're doing. In earlier versions of Excel or in slower computers, it would take much longer. So that file was necessary here. maybe not, but it's always best to inform the user what's happening. You could also inform in early versions of Excel on the status bar by putting a message there. But in later versions of Excel, that is not available for the programmer all the time. Some versions you have, other versions it's not. But so you can always use the message box. So here it's just letting me know, for information, let's open the rates file. It must only be, any changes will not take effect unless an AZMAT System command is used at the end of editing. This is very important. Okay, just acknowledging. So we have zrust.xlsx file open. All rates curves, in this case is US dollar curve. You will have the British pound GBP, or Japanese yen JPY, or XEU for euro, or many other currencies. If you have, then they will all be very similar to this. The only difference will be, if I scroll down, very likely in the number of futures. So in this case, US dollar has 12 futures, F1 to F12, as you can see. Japanese yen has got only 8 futures, and other currencies may have different. But usually then there is so in this particular instance, we will go through all these, what they are, in a minute. But let me just first thing to show you is, the first thing to do is we are just going to, as if we have changed the prices, right? Bid prices, and the bid and offer is spread in the offer price. In this case, we are entering only the yellow, the area under the yellow, colored yellow, basically. So we could change any of these items: future price range, non-future price range, or the spread range. So if you had entered something inadvertently, a very large figure, which should not be there, out of the range you've specified here, AZMAT System will point out to you when, at the time it's saving, it's doing the calculations. So if I go down here, so you can change any of these prices. That's what the typical user would be doing. Not be very much change from day to day, but if there is any, they could change. Okay, so first thing we need to do is actually update a reference curve. Before I complete this particular command, I just want to show you the two things here. So we'll actually go here back to the AA.xlx is AZMAT System user data file. So reference curves, to remember that they're always stored in the same drive and directory where AZMAT program files are stored. Okay, that is the one where we had under the Excel 2010 in this case, because I'm using Excel 2010, then AZMAT folder or directory. In AZMAT System, current reference curves are named as follows: ZR, then XXX.XLS, whereas XXX could be the actual currency name. So in this case, ZRUSD. So the USD is the currency name. How to alter current reference curves or non-reference curves. So any alterations should be carried out by using rates edit or file edit commands. So here, add in under the K menu, K for curves, think of that. And you can use either rates edit or file edit command to alter the curve. Rates edit is where you can only change the rates or the prices, if you like, anything in the yellow area, as we saw before. Whereas the file edit, you can change anything in the curve, including the rates. So you can add or take off futures, or you can you can change the frequency of all these futures, cash, spot, or swaps. anything basically, or in here formula as well. If you want to change, you can change. So by using, you should only use the rates edit or file edit commands from the K menu of AZMAT System. Reference curves, remember. Do not use just Excel. If you open the file in rate by rates edit or file edit, and try and use, instead of using the file save curve changes command, for example, from AZMAT System menu, if you just use the file save or save as something else, it will not actually, AZMAT System will not recognize those changes at all. You have to use one of the AZMAT System commands when you're changing any rates or file edit. You're using rates curve basically by using either rates edit or file edit command. That's the only way. Then AZMAT System will keep track of what's happening to each rate file. Because note, another user within the same company, another dealer in the investment bank might want to change the prices. So AZMAT System keeps track of, for example, here, this file was last saved by AA, that's me, my initials, the ID, the two-letter ID I'm using, on this date, 5th of July, 2017, in this case, at 2:51 a.m. Oh, that's early. So this could be the actual time. So any user would know when they will be able to check if they want to see who changed what last time. The AZMAT System keeps track of the file when it was updated. If you just use Excel command, then there was no way AZMAT System will know that. That's why it completely disregards any, if you make any changes and save using Excel commands only, that will be completely disregarded, and this system will automatically put the file back to what it was, even though you have changed the file. So all reference curves and non-reference curves in AZMAT System are password protected. Consequently, they can be updated only by using AZMAT System commands. AZMAT System will not make use of any curves created by using Excel commands only. Let's have a look at this quick guide to AZMAT System. So now, before we actually do this, save any changes, let's go back to the AZMAT data file. Now, evaluation commands, for example, present value, to calculate present value, yield, duration, and discount factor, DF is for discount factors, and so on. Before using any of these commands, you should know how to actually use them. So evaluation command, any of those commands can be used as follows. A, on a workbook is the file, main file, if you like, on a workbook with all the relevant names defined. And so in here, actually, what I will do is, this one is, I don't have the scroll bars here, so I can simply use the Windows arrange all tiles, and this is only one file there, so I have now the scroll bars, so I can go up or down or sideways using the scroll bars. So on a workbook with all the relevant names defined, or on a workbook with some of the relevant names defined, or lastly, on a workbook with none of the relevant names defined except the AZ, which is basically this area, and on this particular sheet is the highlighted colored area there. So it's from row 2 to 29, columns 1 and 2. So if I go back up, scroll up to the top using the scroll bar, you'll see that this is the defined name here. Actually, I've got it for AZMAT. And it puts the date and the time when last time any calculations were carried out on this particular file. So if I, for example, now that I have not actually updated the rates curve, which I'll do that in a minute, but before we do that, let's just see here what you need to do. So depending on the current worksheet, i.e. where the worksheet where a particular command is invoked from, so where you start a particular command, say for example Control V to calculate the present value, AZMAT System will either go ahead and execute the command if it has all the relevant information it requires, or prompt the user for one or more parameters before proceeding with the execution of the command. So for example, if I want to use cash flow, say CF is for cash flow, area date, cash flow date and question mark. Question mark could be anything between 1 and 99. So if I say CF date 8, I've got 8 here. Basically, you're telling AZMAT System to use CF date 8 area. This one, CF date 1. So if I actually open that there, that is the CF date 1 area. And that's the CF date 2 area. Use that basically. So all you're doing, instead of actually saying that, you can just simply enter the number there. In this case, I have calling it a CF date 8 using that. So each and every time AZMAT System is used, it opens the user's Excel workbook, which is this one, aa.xlsx. That's users, your Excel workbook. This workbook with all the relevant names are in this work with all the relevant names are already defined. This file is created by AZMAT System for every new user and is named as follows: xx.xls or .xlsx. So with the first two letters, in this case like AA, represent the user ID. So I'm using user ID AA, so my user file is AA.xlsx. Another user in the same bank, in the same office might be using another ID, perhaps, I don't know, KY, for example. So his or her ID is KY, so the user file would be ky.xls or xlsx, depending on which version of Excel he or she is using. So in order to calculate the present value, yield, or internal rate of return, AZMAT System requires the following: name of the curve. So the rates file or the curve, you'll get used to it. So in an investment bank, they will sometimes call it rates file or they will call it curve, basically, because it's a yield curve. So that one thing you requires is the name of the curve. So in this case, ZRUSD.xlsx. Or in this case, in AZMAT System, you can simply enter the currency. For example, if I enter just USD, it will know that you mean the reference curve that begins with ZR, because the reference curve, so it is ZR, USD, and it will attach the .xlsx. In this case, because I'm using Excel 2010. If I was using earlier versions of Excel, so for example, Excel 2002 or 3, Excel versions 11, 12, and so on, then it will use ZRUSD.xls, only 3-letter file extension. So it requires the name of the curve file, or in this case, you can enter just the currency. And also the second thing it needs is the cash flow area. So if you have the cash flow area there, you can either specify it by actually pointing it with the mouse, or you can simply enter a number there. That will mean If it's a number here 8, it means CF date 8 area, which is defined. You have already defined CF date 8. And the third thing is other parameters, depending upon what is being calculated. So if you need the various other parameters, which will go into these later on, it needs those as well as to what you need. If you're doing discount factors, it needs the discount factor, which particular method you are interested in. The mid, bid, offer, all of them, and so on. And we'll go all of these parameters in detail later. So on a workbook with all the relevant names defined, the user should enter in the AZ general parameters area the following. 1, name of the curve to use, as we saw here, that's the one there. To use the current reference curve, only the 3-character currency code is sufficient. To use other curves, full name of the curve file is required. So if it's not a current reference curve, then you need to enter the full file name. But if it's the current reference curves you are going to use, just enter the 3-character currency code. That is sufficient. Secondly, a number indicating which cash flow to use. Like here, I said here, like 8 means CF date 8. AZMAT System looks on the current worksheet. If no worksheet name is specified for a defined name as follows. So if you notice here, on the next line, I have here use CF date question mark, means the whatever number, from this worksheet. So if this cell is blank, that means use the current worksheet. Look for this name, CF date 8, on the current worksheet. But if I enter a worksheet here, worksheet name, then it will look for that particular CF date 8 in that worksheet. Or if I enter also CF date question mark from this workbook, if I enter the workbook, which is workbook, remember, is a file, completely separate file, whereas worksheet are worksheets within a particular workbook. So in the current worksheet, I have got only one worksheet called AZMAT. If I had other worksheets, say sheet 1, 2, 3, whatever, or some other name, if I enter that name here, it will use that worksheet and look for the cash flow date area, CF date 8, for example, in that particular worksheet. If this cell is blank, it means look for that name here in this particular worksheet somewhere. There will be that name. So CF date 1, if number is 1, if you enter 1 in here, in the worksheet cell adjacent to use CF date cell, then it will use CF date 1 and 2 and so on, whatever the number is. If there is no defined cash flow area as indicated by the user, for example, I know on this particular one, I have CF date 8 as well. And to show you that I have, let's have a look here. This one, this icon, defined names. So if I go there, defined names, name manager, it'll show me all the names that are here. So there I have a CF date 8, which refers to, on here, row 73, column 4 to row 84, column 5. This particular workbook here I have in this particular worksheet, the current worksheet. So all the currently defined names are here in this workbook. Now this is a scope is workbook. So even if I had other worksheet, there will not be the scope is either the entire workbook, so there's only that one name there, or I could also have the names in each name. For example, I could have this particular name, CF date 7, I have in this worksheet. If I put another worksheet here, sheet 1, I could have another name called CF date 7 in say sheets 2 or 3 or whatever. And by putting, if I move this slightly out of the way, by putting, say, if I keep this blank worksheet, that means I'm telling AZMAT System to look for CF date 8 in the current worksheet where this AZ area is. If I put in 8 there and I enter another worksheet name, so if I had another worksheet called sheet 2 or 3 or whatever, if I enter, like, for example, sheet 2, then I'm telling AZMAT System to look for CF date 8 in sheet 2 and so on. Or in this case, it'll have to be, the scope of this has to be by sheet, worksheet rather. So this is AZMAT, then I could have another worksheet, sheet 2 or 3, whatever. In there, if I enter sheet 2, then there'll be like CF date 7, so on. It'll become clearer as you get to use more and more AZMAT System on a daily basis. So if there is no defined cash flow area as indicated by the user, or the user has not indicated any particular cash flow. So for example, CF date 8 did not exist, as I said. So if I know I don't have any area called, for example, if I go back here, name manager, I have up to CF date 8, but I don't have anything. I have DF dates 1, 2, and so on, but not CF date 9, for example. They don't have to be in consecutive order. But, so I don't have any area called CF date 27, for example. So if I enter 27, and it can't, obviously it's not already defined because it's not there in this particular worksheet. Because I'm keeping this blank, that means I'm saying, look for in this particular worksheet. And in any case, in this case, I have only got one worksheet in this particular workbook or file. Okay, so in that case, then AZMAT System will prompt the user for the cash flow area. So we'll get a message box here, input area, for asking the user to either point to the top cell of the cash flow, top left-hand one of the date, first date, or select the entire cash flow area. Could be that, or I could say, if I only want to use, say, first 3, I could say that, use that. So without actually having to define that particular area as a cash flow area and its own, I could just simply say, use it by pointing out to whatever the extent of that, and then it will use only that, because I've said so. Other relevant parameters, for example, yield basis and yield frequency. So on here, we have the yield, and you can see there are different bases here. Yield basis, we have 0 to 4, frequencies, annual, semi-annual, quarterly, and so on. And this is a combination one, 1 to 7. We will see it as you get to know later on. We'll go in detail exactly what they mean. So those parameters, they're also required, depending on what you're calculating. So for example, in this case, the yield basis, yield frequency are used by AZMAT System for yield calculations. And therefore, the user should ensure that currently displayed values for these parameters are acceptable. So if you are looking for, on this particular yield basis 4, and the frequency is A for annual, make sure this is exactly what you are looking for. If they're not, then you will not get the correct answer. So the AZMAT System is actually taking these as your instructions to calculate the yield on the basis 4 and the frequency annual. So if you're looking for a semi-annual frequency, make sure this has got 4, S for semi-annual, or Q for quarterly frequency. So similarly, present value, when it's calculating present value PV, that's the most commonly used instrument in an investment bank. They use, and a typical dealer would use probably maybe 95% of the time, present value. That's what they are interested in, present value of a bond, for example, or whatever financial instrument. So in this case, B is use the bid one I'm after. Okay, so you are basically letting AZMAT System know which particular method you're interested in this case. In this case, PV method ABOMPV. So we will go through each of these later on. And now, on the other hand, for example, in discount factor is, again, this is something you will learn how to actually, in fact, before we can calculate the present value, it requires the discount factors to be calculated. Very important. And you learn what they are and so on. So discount factor calculations use the values for DF method. So the DF method, so DF method would be here, and the DF date, and the DF res for result. Basically asking where date would be. For example, you're saying if it's equal to 100, use the cash flow date area. So for example, if I put 100 there, what is indicating, you as a user indicating to AZMAT System is, I put 100 here. I said, right, calculate the discount factor. So in this case, I'm interested in the mid and the bid methods for that. I'm interested, and also because I put 100, I'm saying use whatever the cash flow date, the dates for that. So in this case, CF date 8. So if I go down in here, so we have here CF date 8. So this is CF date cash flow, CF date 8. So it's a cash flow date 8 area. And in the discount factor, you're not using the amount. So you don't need the cash flow area, whole of it. All you're interested in this case, I'm indicated to AZMAT System that use the CF date, the dates in the CF date area. So use these dates for calculating the discount factor. So note that the calculations for yield and discount factor also use other parameters not mentioned above. So there are a whole lot of other parameters which AZMAT System uses, but they're not here. We can't just show you all of them in here. The other thing here we'll go through is briefly is the control keys. Now, before I open that, let me first let's just go and we'll quickly finish off what we were in here doing the ZRUSD curve. Remember, we'll open this for rates edit. Let's imagine we have changed the prices. You don't actually have to physically change them. Let's keep them as they are, but we had opened it today. You need to open it and do either rates edit or file edit. For example, file edit, you wouldn't necessarily go around changing all the structure, everything every day. No, you won't. So you would probably do once a quarter. You do need to change this area, these values here. So use for example, from F1 to F12 to change if we had opened and file edit. Note in this particular case, it's not allowing me to go and click anywhere outside the yellow area because I can only change the yellow area. So physically, the user cannot go anywhere outside the yellow area. I can change here these values anywhere, anything in yellow here I can change because I've opened the file for rates edit. If I'd opened it for file edit, then I'd be able to go and change there, everywhere, anywhere, basically anything in the entire file. or even the actual, if I wanted to add something else, some other things here, instruments, I could do that. But that the level, edit level, is only given to people at a level where the company is happy for them to have that authority. So not all users will have the authority to change file, to do file edit. So people have either, they can either do just the rates edit, so they can change the rates. Other people will be able to change the whole file as well. There will also be other people who can't even be allowed to change the rates. They can only use it, so they can only open it as read-only mode. So in the K, open curve for view. And yet there are still other people who will not be, who will not even have the authority to even view the curve or rates file. So it depends in AZMAT system, depends on the level of the user, what level user has the authority to use before they can use certain commands. So let's, in here, I finished, let's say I made some changes, and which I'm not going to actually change it because I want to keep the original one there. And in the K command, I can say, right, save curve changes. So before I can use US dollar curve, this particular rates file, US dollar rates file, in any calculations, I have to open it, either do a rates edit or a file edit that day, at least once a day. If it's not, you'll find that AZMAT system will actually give you a message saying that this particular rates file has not been edited today, so it cannot be used. So, right, let's save the curve changes. So it's giving me an opportunity to actually either go ahead with the saving the file to keep any changes made, or cancel the command. And that means the entire edit session, and restore ZRUSD.XLSX to its original condition, i.e. as it was before the original edit command. Note that it made some changes and used Excel file save command to save over the original file, AZMAT system will restore the file to its original condition before you actually had opened you had used the AZMAT race edit command to open race edit or file edit command to open the file. So you will learn how to do all that as a programmer. So no matter what the user is doing, you have full control of what they can or cannot do. It's very important because there are millions of dollars worth of bonds will be traded using the rates files and the prices and all these other financial instruments and what they are. These letters may not mean much to you right now. Spot, cash, futures, swaps below, SW for swaps, or the actual values. But there's a lot at stake. So a bank, an investment bank, cannot afford to take the risk of just anyone going and changing any of these files. So only relevant people with the relevant authority can change. And so even if someone went ahead and opened in Excel, opened the file, and made any changes, first thing they would have to know the password for a start. There are various passwords. And even if they did that, AZMAT system will not use any file which has been edited outside of AZMAT system. So although you have full access to all the Excel commands, but you have to use one of the AZMAT system, either rates edit or file edit command to make any changes to the rates file. So in this case, I said right click OK to keep any changes. Okay. Because note, in an investment bank, the dealers are constantly making deals worth millions of dollars or pounds or yens and so on, whatever currency you're dealing with. So it is very, very important that the company, the bank, knows that the files cannot be changed by anyone. And if someone has changed it, it will ignore those changes. So it's just letting you know that it's completed required calculations on raised file that, and the file has been saved, manual version. There is a live version as well. In this case, we've done the manual version. Click OK. Done. So it's done that. Now that the US dollar file has been done, we can actually do some calculations using that particular file. Okay. Before we do that, let's open the. I want to show the control keys, but before I do that, I want to have all the relevant files necessary. So in this case, at present, I have only now, as you can see, aa.xls, only one file open and not hidden. I have other files which AZMAT System is open, but they are all hidden. You can have a look at it if you like. So unhide window, there. So you can see the files. Not all of them you can see because some of them are password protected. So in order to look at it, you need to use the appropriate password. And again, as a user, you will be supplied with all the passwords of all the files. There are more than 100 system files. And you'll be able to remember all of them. Each of them can have up to 5. So because that I said, okay, so I unprotected that one. So I'm just going to close it right now, not to close, hide it. For now, we will go through it later on. This is just one small aspect of that AZMAT system. So if I go in here, show you unhide, because you are the, for example, authorized user, and so it is not hidden. It's not protected for unhiding particularly. But there are other files which require passwords in order to see them. But you will be given all the passwords of all the files. And so you know which files, which passwords to use. Okay, so I'll cancel this command. I won't open any others. I won't unhide. They're all open, but they're hidden. So at this particular point, I have only one file in here, as you can see, which is open and not hidden. So let's open the other one I want to open here is go into J menu, open the SSWAP model. This is the star model of AZMAT system. So just click that and it'll open. All password protected, but AZMAT system automatically applies the password. And you will also know how to write programs in which you automatically give the password. So I do not need to give the user password for this file. In the computer program itself, you can supply the password in order to open it. So as you notice here, it's opened as read-only. If you ever open it outside of AZMAT system, any of these files, I would strongly advise you to open them only as read-only mode. Because if you make even slight changes to some of these items, wherever they are, it could have very severe consequences. So in order to ensure that the system runs smoothly and as it was designed, I strongly suggest that you keep a backup copy of the original AZMAT system files somewhere and only use the files in AZMAT system, opening AZMAT system, not outside AZMAT system in Excel. And if you did open outside AZMAT system in Excel, open them only as read-only. So do not open, make some changes, save it, and then expect it to work perfectly within AZMAT system. It may not. So this AZMAT system in here, we have some control keys. We'll just briefly go through here. So you have the SSWAP model, very briefly. You have US dollar this side, and they have another one, could be, in this case, I've got US dollar, so it's interest rate swap because the currency is the same. If it was different currency, the swap currency is different to the bond currency, then you will have, it's called cross-currency swap. Cross-currency swap. So we have net market price of a bond there. You have the swap margin, LIBOR swap margin. So it's London Interbank Overnight Rate. That's what LIBOR stands for. You'll know all these terms later on if you need to. Or if you're working in an investment bank, you'll know it by heart. Required net profit loss in US dollar. So you have these three items. Price of a bond, margin, swap margin, or the net profit loss of a bond. So in order to calculate, for example, if you just want to calculate, you can use control keys. So if you use only when the asset swap model, that's the file name, ZB. So Z is a special character for all AZMAT system files. So I would strongly advise you not to use any of your files beginning with Z, because then AZMAT system regards them as one of these system files. So in ZB, and then AZMAT is the asset swap model file name. So the second letter would be different for, say, for example, the FRN, financial model, or some other one, bond model, and so on. So you use anything other than Z beginning. Avoid the Z and any file for your own use. So if I use Control P, I'm asking AZMAT system to calculate the bond market price given swap margin and net PL. So using this particular swap margin, 16 basis points, and the PL is 0, so calculate what the price should be, for example. Of course, you don't want the net profit loss 0. You'd rather have some profit loss, so you can enter whatever you think you would like to have appropriate for that particular swap. Control M calculates the margin. So it calculates the margin using whatever price you've entered there and whatever profit loss you've entered. So what margin it would be if the AZMAT system uses these two items. So that's what M means. If you say use Control N, control, when I say Control N, whatever is the CTRL key on your keyboard, Control key. Can't show you the keyboard here on the screen, but I'm sure you're aware of the Control key. Control key is marked CTRL. You have at least, almost all computers have at least one. Some of them have two of these keys on the keyboard. So you press Control. While you hold it down, Control key, then you press either M, Control M, so we call Control M. If you say Control P, it means holding down the Control key and press the letter on the keyboard, in this case P, or N for net profit loss. So these three, P, M, and N, are only applicable in the asset swap model of AZMAT system, right? Control P, Control M, Control N. Again, don't try to remember. You don't have to. It will become second nature to you as you start using it on a daily basis. So P is for price, M for margin, swap margin, and N for net profit loss. So if I now go back to the other, then you need to use that. Actually, I could just use, so I'll click that back there. If I go back to the AA.xlx, that's a user data file. So in here, the other things here you'll be using, for example, use the Control key. So Control key commands, you just recap, press and hold down the Control key, CTRL key, and then press the required letter, example V for present value. So present value, so it's V for present value, Y for yield. And in here, notice that it will be IRR, internal rate of return, when the PV is equal to 0. So when the present value is 0, the yield is actually IRR, internal rate of return. Again, this is specific to investment banking, so you will get to know as you start using it more frequently, AZMAT system, and do read the help file and so on. So, for example, Control V calculates the present value, puts the result there. Result goes in the AZ general parameters area, and present value is also entered in the current cell. So if I have my cell there, for example there, and I press Control V. So right, I've already specified the curve, I've specified the cash flow date area, and I'm saying, right, calculate the present value. So if I press Control V, this particular minus 245 order, that will be changed to whatever actually is for this particular curve. So Control V. There. So this is very slightly different because I'm using that particular cash flow. If I change the curve, cash flow date area, to something completely different, let's change it to, because this probably had calculated last time and the same one. So if I change it to, for example, C of date 1, if I say use C of date 1, it would be very different now, because the cash flow area is completely different. Note the cash flow area C of date 8 was, if I go back down there, C of date was this, completely different values and the dates. So all depends on the, very much different. The present value is here now. Now this C of date here is completely different. The values, the actual amounts, and the dates. So if I now press Control V, see what happens. There, pretty quick, very fast. In fact, in this, as computers became faster and faster, I actually had to use commands to slow down AZMAT system because it was just too quick. As you can see, this is completely different. It's a positive value, and as opposed to the other one was a negative value altogether, completely different, just because using the same yield curve, but the cash flow date area is different. All the other parameters are the same yield basis, PV method is the same, exactly the same, except that the cash flow date area is different. So if I now use the Control V calculates the present value, result goes in this area, in AZ parameters area PV, in that cell, and also in the current cell, wherever the cell is. So this cell could be anywhere else, and it'll use that. So let's do the yield, for example, yield. So for yield, it calculates the present value if it is not provided by the user. So if I press Control Y, calculate the yield, and if I had nothing here, then it will calculate that as well. But if I had some present value given there, then it will calculate the yield based on that. So calculates the present value only if it is not provided by the user, and the yield. And result goes in the AZ general parameters area, which is this here area, against the yield there. Yield is also entered in the current cell. So in here, I will leave that. So that should not change at all. That will be the same. And because it will use that, and since I'm using the same cash flow date 1, so we'll see what the yield is. So if I press Control and Y, so there. So the yield is now 4.13148, and it's also here. And in here, it's not particularly to any decimal places, so it says filled in as many as it could in this column width. So we've gone to 3, 6, 8 decimal places. Could be even more. If I actually widen the column, you'll see. In here, up to 5 decimal places are sufficient for the yield to know that. So that's what we have there. If instead of the just present value V or Y, if I press Control B, it calculates both present value, whether or not it is provided by the user. So even whether you provide it or not, it'll calculate that. And the yield. Result goes in there, present value and yield, and also present value and yield are also entered in the current cells. So if I say, if I have Control B, if I put 2 cells like this, or if I have 2 cells, they have to be adjacent, means next to each other. So I will enter. So let's use this here, because this particular column here, I probably have formatted for the dates. So I'll use this here. Note, I don't have to do it here. I could do it anywhere, in row 100, 500, wherever, completely away from here. But I'm keeping it here so I can quickly check it here, what's happening. So let's say use a different cash flow. Instead of CF date 1, I want to use this cash flow here, CF date 2. But before that, actually, this is very much back. I don't want to use that. Instead, let's use CF date 7, for example. I'm going to change this. This time, I don't want to give any date. Right? I'll just delete that, nothing there. So AZMAT System now should prompt me, that means ask me, with a dialog box to indicate which cash flow to use. So then I can point out within the using the scroll bar, go to the right area and say, right, use that particular cash flow. So that will be completely different. So first thing I'll do is I'm going to here hold here or maybe up here. So completely separate. I want to make sure you don't get confused. So these 2 cells, that's where I want the result. So I'll press Control B. But this time, result will not be calculated because straight away, because it requires me to give to let AZMAT System know which cash flow area to use, because I have got nothing here. I've deliberately deleted that number 8 or 1 or 2 or whatever from here. In this case, I'm letting AZMAT System know that it should prompt me for the cash flow date. So if I press Control B, B for Bravo, or both, if you like, Control B. Right. So now, as you notice here, we've got the cash flow area here, asking me to either give the reference here or click the top cell. I can also just give the top cell of that particular area. I don't actually need to specify the whole of that. Here, first date cell. So click on the first date cell. For example, I could click there if I want to use cash flow date 1, or highlight all the cash flow area with the cursor. Right? So I can either click there or click the whole lot. So here I can say that if I want to use cash flow date 1 in that, and then it'll quickly keep going down, down, down until it comes a blank cell. Then it'll say, right, that's my cash flow area there. Right? Automatically, it will calculate that. If I just take it away from there somewhere, so either I can just click the top cell, or I can click the entire cash flow area, or even there, if I just want to use 3 cells, 3 rows, for example, but 2 columns, that. But in this case, I want to use cash flow date 7. I could have put just number 7 there. That would have been much simpler. But I just want to show you. So instead of that, all these highlight doesn't matter. Don't worry if you have selected somewhere else, here, there, anywhere. When you get to it, will not just accept it until you click OK. So I'll go scroll down. Note your dialog box stays where it is. So I want to say CF date 7, which is here. I have there, CF date 7. So I can either just click that. See, row 73, column 2. So we are row 73, column 2, top, the first date cell. First date cell, right? Click on the first date cell or highlight all the cash flow area with the cursor. So I can highlight from there to there, say up to there, if that's all I want to use. If I didn't want it to use up to there, I must highlight that full. Or alternatively, I could actually go and highlight the whole area as it is. So you have the choice. So if you didn't want to use the entire cash flow area as according to CF date 7, you could just simply use what you want to use, what you want AZMAT system to use to calculate the present value of that bond at that point, right? Using the ZRUSD or XLS X5. Okay, let's say we wanted to use. So we'll just specify the top cell. Must simply let AZMAT system calculate. It will keep on checking all these date cells and then come to the end. So comes a blank cell, say, right, that's the end of my cash flow, one row above. So let's say that, and I click OK. So I'm using CF date 7, remember, by simply specifying that. And I said, can calculate both present value and the yield, and put the results in those two particular cells, which were up there somewhere, right, which I've used. So I'll click OK. And so now if I go up there, so it has entered the results in the two cells which I selected before using that particular command. And note, it hasn't put any number here because it doesn't, because you may not have, it's up to you. It's you decide what you want or not. So it won't do that. So it's used that cash flow date 7 to calculate the present value, which also put it here, and the yield, which is here. Note this is different to the last yield we had calculated, 4.1314, whatever, this is 4.91, because the cash flow is completely different. And the present value is completely different from what it was before for the other cash flow. So let's see that these two values should be identical if I actually put it here. Again, the two cells, I will select these two cells, and I'll enter number 7 here. So without specifying it by the dialog box, and then go on, if I enter number 7, because that is what I used, that is what AZMAT system has just used, although I didn't enter the full, didn't specify the full cash flow area. I entered just the tops, the first date cell. So now this time I'm saying, right, all the other parameters are still the same, and there are many others in the background, all exactly the same, but enter the use cash flow date 7, enter the result here in these two cells, and of course here. Now these two will be identical because they'll be the same. They're using cash flow date 7. I could do two things. I could either actually leave it as it is, or take it off, and you'll see that it will be the same, entered exactly the same. Because this one, let's take it off, because otherwise you might think it's not done anything here, because it'll be identical. So it's traveled to 603.43 there, 0.4304, and it's got to 5 decimal places, 4.91224. So let's remove these two. Press delete key, cancel. So now I select here. I'll actually put a gap there so we can see now what's happening. So if I now say use Control B to calculate the present value and the yield, which should be the same because I'm using the same cash flow date 7 area. But this time I'm actually specifying two AZMAT systems. Use CF date 7 by putting number 7 here. So it will say CF date 7, question mark means any number from 1 to 99. Right. So if I press Control B, I should have these same values entered here by entirely different calculation now, again, fresh calculation, and the results will be put here, present value there and the yield there. So see what happens, Control B. There. So we've got it's used that, and no surprise, it's used is that the values are exactly the same, identical there and there and there. As we had it 5 decimal places, this is 4 decimal places there, and using cash flow date 7. So whether you want to use a number, simply, obviously, you might want to use it to simply just put a number there instead of having to, and it's also quicker as well, because if AZMAT System has got all the parameters it needs to calculate, you put them there and just press Control keys, V for value, Y for yield, B for both present value and yield, because these are the two most common financial instruments, if you like, any particular investment bank dealer needs. So more than even the yield is the present value is the one. Always want to know what the present value is. 95% of the time, that is what is required and used. As you'll get to know later on, you learn what is required. So in order to get this calculation in seconds, as we saw here now, let's do it one more time. But I'll do something else. This time I'll say Control I. The Control I is the calculates the internal rate of return, IRR. And that is the result will go in the AZ general parameters area. And also it's also entered in the current cell. And note that internal rate of return is, as says so here, IRR is the yield, actually, yield percent IRR when PV is equal to 0. PV is present value. So see what happens here. If I press I, you will see that the AZMAT system will enter 0 here, because to ensure that you are aware that it's actually using that this is not, it's a yield, but it's actually the internal rate of return when the PV equal to 0. Okay, and also here, because that's where I'm asking AZMAT system to enter. So Control I, so press Control I there. So it's 739. It's rounded up to nearest decimal places. So it's rounded up to nearest integer, rather. So 738 point is up to 5 decimal places here. To nearest integer is 739 rounded up. And notice here is put 0. So when the dealer will be looking at his spreadsheet, and he or she sees 0 there in present value and some value there, then they know that this is IRR, internal rate of return, okay, because the PV is 0. Now the other one is then there's duration. Control R is for duration in years. Result goes in the AZ general parameters area, and also duration is also entered in the current cell as well. So let's say, so duration in years here. See, duration in years. Again, all these terms will become familiar to you later on as you use AZMAT system more frequently, and also read the help file and simply actually just follow, just use it as a typical investment bank user will do. And so these terms you really are you need to know what they are, and you will also be shown. I'll show you later on what all the calculations for various terms are, various different types of bonds and so on. So let's just do the Control R for the duration. So if I press Control R, it will put the result in here, duration in years, right, just above this yellow one. and also here, because that's what I'm saying, it's Control R. 3. So as you can see here, it's put down to 5 decimal places. Duration is 2.96718. Rounded up to the number of years is actually 3 years there. But in the US, it's actually exactly 2.96718 here. Again, what it is and how it's actually calculated and so on, we'll go into detail later on. The last one here I want to show is to calculate the discount factors. Result goes in the current cells and below. So if I have, for example, discount factor here, result, I've got one here. So if I didn't have anywhere in this one here, it's used. Let's have a look at it where it actually in discount factor DF res 1 is. So this one, like CF date 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 199. Here we have DF discount factor result. Question mark means 1 to 99. So I have here defined names. So if I look in the name manager, so DF res 1 is row 4, column 9. See DF res 1, the last one here, defined name, refers to row 4, column 9 is DF res 1. Okay, so row 4, column 9, row 4, column 9. This is row 4, as you can see. I don't know whether you can see, it's highlighted here, row 4, column 9. And it is actually, you can see DF res 1 here. Or if I hold it down while I'm here, it should show me row 4, column 9. Can't move my cursor because as soon as I move my cursor, this DF res 1, it becomes DF res 1 because that's where they're in there. If I move it down one row, that's row 5, column 9. So one row above is row 4, column 9. But it's also called DF res 1. So the result will go there because I've already specified it as to go there in the DF res 1 by putting in number 1 here. If I take it off, then the calculate discount factor, but the results will go in the current cells and below, not in DF res 1. So for example, I could, and make sure in here, this is very different to the others. When you are calculating discount factors, make sure you do not have anything below. Because here, unlike all these other things we've been doing just on there, this can go on quite far below the actual results. So do not put anything under these. Always use discount factor wherever you want it. It's complete. Make sure do not have your anything else below. If you have something there, copy it somewhere else and clear the area. Keep this area completely separate. So we'll have maturity there and we have 2 columns there. So the results will go there. So in this particular case, I'll actually, if I want it here, what I can do, actually I want to show you something different. So I'm going to put it somewhere there, for example. Not there, this column, same column, I want to stick in column 9, not 10. So there, column 9, same as that. I'm asking it to, and I'll remove this DF res 1. So that means it should not use that. It should use where my cursor is. So there, take that off, and let's go and put it somewhere in here. So I'll put it in column 9 up here, right? Somewhere there. So I've got it in row 40, column 9, for example. I'll make sure I've got nothing underneath. Quite far back, right? So say. And now, so what I'm asking you to control D, D is for discount factors. And so I'm saying by putting 100 there, I'm actually letting the AZMAT system know that I want, see if it says, if it's 100, use the cash flow date, whatever the number is, cash flow you're using. In this case, it's cash flow date 7. So it will calculate the discount factors for the mid and the bid and B discount factor methods. For cash flow date 7. Use these dates. It will not use the cash flow date 7 whole area. Discount factors are only for the dates. You're interested in just the dates. So by putting 7 there, I'm letting AZMAT system know that I wanted to calculate discount factors for these dates. So I'll leave my cell there, wherever it is, it's row 40, column 9, and write, let's say, Control D. Error. Please select a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 6 adjacent cells in the same row for discount factor results. This command cannot proceed further. See, I have got only one cell selected, but I need a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 6. Why that is so? Because the first one will be the date, and then depending on the number of the discount factor methods I've asked it to do, for example, if it's A, all, then there will be 5 methods plus the date columns will be 6. So can maximum 6 on a minimum of 2, because you could have only one method, for example, mid price, bid price, or whatever. But if you remember, in that area is a parameters area, which we'll go and look at it in a minute. We've got M and B. M for mid, B for bid. So we should have 3 cells selected. At this point, we've got, it's an error, you made a mistake, no problem. AZMAT system will let you know, and also giving a helpful message to what you actually should be doing. Okay, for the discount factor results. This command cannot proceed further. Okay, so that's it. It stops. You can't do it. It will tell you that you selected, because the reason is, you might say, oh, why doesn't it actually just simply put it? Because since discount factors, as I said to you before, make sure you have nothing underneath here. But also because in this case, it requires, depending on the number of the discount factor methods you have asked it to calculate, it could go and overwrite some important data you might have, your important formulae or some other data. So it doesn't want to overwrite anything without your knowledge or consent. So it just will not do the command. So by specifying the actual number of cells, in this case, we'll have to do 3, because you've selected 2 methods. So it needs the first column for the date, and then the other 2 for the results. So I'll click OK. And since it's an error, it's got a warning, exclamation mark, triangle there, exclamation mark. So, okay. Right, so it hasn't done anything because it does not want to overwrite any of your data. It wants you to know that by specifying, if I, for example, in this case, if I have to select 1, 2, 3, then it knows that I know what I'm doing. I'm fully aware that the results are going to go here and underneath. So don't have anything underneath, anything you need, basically. Right? That's what it's saying. And remember, we are saying use CF date 7. So let's say for what actually just to show you, instead of putting it up there, I'll put it here in the same row, say row 73. But just before we do that, let's go back up and have a look at it, why it has to be 3 columns. So let's see here. See discount factor methods. Method, or in brackets S for plural. So I could have one discount factor method or more. In fact, in this case, if I say A, it means all. It means all of these 5. So or A is for all. So A is not all. So if I say B, I have got B for bid, M for mid, O is for offer. So I have specified 2. So if I had, for example, if I have DF res 1 there, then I'm saying, right, that's my top left cell area for discount factor results. And it should use that. But in this case, I want to put it somewhere else. So I'll put it not there. I've taken that DF res 1, which I had here before, where the result should go, took that off, number 1. So DF res from this on this here, I took it off that one, and I wanted to put it somewhere here. So there, and but rather instead of there, actually I'll put it here so we can look at it. So in this particular row, there, let's go up here, 9. So 9, 10, 11, this is the date it should use. So I'm going to use 3 because I need 9, 10, and 11. Mid-bid and the date you look at. So this time, let's see what happens here. If I press Control D for discount factor, note we are asking it to calculate discount factor for these days, because by putting DF date 100, you will specify into AZMAT System, use the cash flow, whatever the cash flow date area, the dates in the cash flow date area, which is here date 7. So now if I press Control D, now it's saying here, AZMAT System will enter discount factor results in 7 rows by 3 columns. Remember, we had specified the top 3 cells only, top row if you like, because we've asked it to calculate the mid and the bid discount factor, and the first column will be the date. So that part is correct. Now this time it's not an error, because discount factor will overwrite here. If you notice here, you have 3, 6, 7 rows for the CF date. Happens to be 7. This 7, nothing to do with the fact that it is 7 rows. It could be 30 rows or whatever. So that's 7. Don't assume that that 7 has anything to do with the fact that it is 7 rows. This is the extent of the date in here in 7 rows. So it's letting me know that the result, AZMAT System will enter discount factor results in 7 rows by 3 columns. So if I move this out, I can see better. And if I put it here, you can see it's exactly in the same rows. So we have 7 rows because I had put this my cell there at the first cell. So it's 7 rows by 3 columns, because the first column will be taken by the date here these days. That's what I wanted to calculate discount factors for. And then the mid and the bid by, depending in the order I have put it there, BM or MB, whatever, in that order it will put the results. Replacing and basically letting you know that we'll enter discount factor results in 7 rows by 3 columns, replacing any data in the highlighted area. Is this okay? So press OK to proceed, or press cancel to select a different area for discount factor results. So for example, you've forgotten, you by mistake, you didn't know, or the extent of it, what it will be. There is your chance to cancel the command by pressing cancel, and then specify a different area if you had something else here which you wanted to keep. So in AZMAT System, you will always get these things so that the user cannot inadvertently go and cancel something or delete something he or she did not want to. And you will learn how to write programs like this. All this is all done by AZMAT System programs. And you will learn, we will go into this in a step-by-step mode, line by line, every single line of the program, as many as we could, theoretically. Let's go for each of these commands. Okay, so there it is, AZMAT System letting me know that, and you'll also learn how to yourself, when you write programs, give out these helpful messages and how actually it has come up with this, selecting that area as well, and so on. Okay, or press cancel to. So AZMAT System is really very, very sophisticated system. And if you learn some of these techniques, although this is designed for investment bank users, enterprise-wide, so literally could be hundreds of users could be using it at the same time. If you learn how to use good techniques, you could use these techniques in anything else for any other program you develop for years to come. So there it is, it'll go there, letting me know, fine, I think, right, it's okay, go ahead, click OK, there, done. So if you notice here, we have 10th of July, this is English dates. So the day is first, then the month, then the year. So it's the 10th of July, as we have 29th August 17, 29th August 18, and so on. 29th August 22, the last one. So there's the date column, and then here mid and the bid. I'll have to see whether it is MB ahead or BM. Depending in that order, it has put the results. So I had here MB. If you look at this here, discount factor method, I had a small m and small b. So AZMAT System has entered them in capital letters basically, and MB. So the first one is mid, and the second one is bid, discount factor. There. So it's the mid discount factor using mid prices, bid prices, discount factor there. There's not much difference in here, as you can notice. It's really going up to, several decimal places where the change actually is there. As you can see, up to 4 decimal places, exactly the same. 0.995, 0.995. Then it becomes 7321, and here it becomes after that 68874, and so on. And the only reason this is more is because this column is slightly wider, perhaps. So it's 995, 68874, 995, 7321. It is 4 decimals after that. So 8 decimal places there. And the dates are the same here, because you've asked it to, by specifying CF date, just number 7 there, you're saying, okay, use those dates. And that's done. So that's the control D for discount factors. These are very, very useful and essential calculations. Before you can calculate the discount, the present value, or the yield, and all these other calculations, you need to calculate the discount factors. And that's why in every rates file or the rates curve, like we did for the US dollar, it says that you need to edit, either rates edit or file edit before you can use it. Because once you have completed your editing, whatever you want to change the prices, as we did or did not, AZMAT System needs to calculate, and various other, we need to carry out various calculations, and one of those is the discount factors, okay, which it requires before it can calculate the present value and other things. And you will learn how to do that. It could take you several months. So don't worry about it. You won't learn everything in one day. because this system, it took more than 8 man-years for me to develop in Excel. It's 100% in Excel. It does not use any other language. Entire thing is developed using Excel macro and Excel VBA programming languages and various financial models, about 25 financial models. 12 of them are the calculation models like asset swap model. This itself is equivalent to just one model. Asset swap model is more than equivalent to all the other 11 calculation models. Very, very complicated, very sophisticated, allows users to do whatever they want to. For example, let's do that. Now that we actually got the US dollar there, we can just do these three. As we noticed earlier on, we said, right, if you keep the price fixed, calculate, use what's the margin should be, and the net profit loss, or the required one. So this is if you require certain net profit loss, you say so. So in this case, we'll say, right, calculate the net profit loss in US dollar using the nominal amount. We'll go through all these later on. So let me change the date. Maturity date has to be, because here, remember, note this, maturity date must be greater than or equal to the settlement date. Settlement date is this, here, transaction deal date. It's got here. So I'll change it to, let's change it to, say 19. 19, let's make it 20, 27. So I'm saying for 20, this is the transaction deal date. That was the date there. Today is in here, in England, it is 5th of July. That's what the date is there. But the settlement date is here. The system will put it as 10th of July in this particular case. We'll go through it later on. You'll see it actually after it's done, but you can also specify a certain date if it is different. You want. Okay, let's say Control N. I want to just show you the calculations using the control keys in asset swap model. So there are Control P, M, or N. So we'll say, let's say calculate the present value, sorry, not present value, calculate the net profit loss. So they calculate net profit loss and also, but for using the actual, just that, if I want this as well, and 1 basis point market price, the margin as well, then I have to use the, for example, if I want to use that as well, so calculate net profit loss, profit or loss, and 1 basis point move. So if the price moved by 1 basis point, then what the difference would be to the net profit loss. So it should calculate. But in this case, using the control keys, I can either use the control for the price, Control P, so to calculate bond market price, using these two, whatever you have there, or using the swap margin, sorry, calculate the swap margin, so Control M, using these two fixed. Or in this case, calculate net profit loss using the price and the margin, that what the net profit loss would be. Okay, so we'll really just use the control keys, these three keys. So if I press Control N now in this, so before, actually, if I just click here, you'll see a bit more of this whole thing. So we should watch out this one. This value should change now, because we've entered the maturity date. Wait a second, I have only entered it here. I meant 22 or 2020, not 2012. Change it to 2020. Okay, year 2020, return. So now this happens to be on a Saturday, so I shouldn't actually give it that. I'll make it 31st. The 31st of August will be Monday. So don't deliberately give it the wrong date, and the system will take time to change it and all that, or give you an error message that is not. Let's give it on a Monday, a working day, 31st of August. But then again, 31st August may be a bank holiday in some places. So we can even change this. We don't have to have the 31st of August as such. I'll just make it say September. But not September doesn't have 31 days. So I'll make it, let's say 30th of September. Now you might think, oh, it's that it has to be the end of the month. No, it doesn't. I can change anything. I can say this one doesn't have to be that. I can say like 25th of September. Whatever date you have, you give it that. So in this case, 25th of September 20, that's my maturity, I'm saying. And now this is only 3 years ahead, roughly, just over 3 years. Okay, let's watch what happens. I press Control. Now it gives me this message here, input data has been changed. PV, present value, yield, and the net P&L results displayed may not be correct. Okay, so it's letting you know, it's a warning that the results displayed, don't expect everything is all automatically calculated. You have to run Excel commands either by them from the menu, so add in, and then go into the Z menu. Here, use one of these commands, any of these, or use the control key commands. So I'll use the control key commands. So I'll say Control N for net profit loss. That's what I'm interested in. This is currently 65,009. Let's see what happens here. If I press Control N for net profit loss, N for no, there. This is a completely different figure. As you can see, it was 65,009. It's now 1,841. Using these price and the margin. So when you say Control N, control the net profit loss, given the bond market price and the swap margin. So 16 basis points swap margin, bond market price 100, calculate the net profit loss there, 1,841. For this particular bond, all the details of this bond are there, maturity, and so on, all these other, the settlement and these parameters, using all these, for the swap using these parameters. If we change any of these, of course, it will change the results. Now, if I just go down, notice that this is also changed. If you notice, if you remember, if you may or may not remember, this was different. It was not 38,889, it was a different figure. And all these others are values may be different, maybe not. I can't remember. I don't have to remember. These are calculated as we change. Now, this is using manual curve, or you see if you put 1 here, it's a live, 0 is manual curve. And all these other things as well, people can change, the users can change. Very, very sophisticated this SSWap model is. And you'll see as we come to use this itself could take several hours of tutorial to learn this, because this particular model itself is equivalent to 11 other calculation models. Okay, so let's now, we've done all the calculation command, the control keys here for now. We will stop now and continue with this on another occasion. So SSO model, this actually, we could, one other thing is here, we could go and save these values as a transaction. But I don't want to start it right now, because that will go through when we go into SSO model. As I mentioned, it is quite sophisticated, and there are lots and lots of things to learn. This alone is, some of dealers will be using it maybe 85% of the time for the whole day, entire day, every day. First thing, when they come in, they will have this on their machine open on their computer. And instead of using calculators or spreadsheets to calculate, they will use this. As you saw, within seconds, it can do all the calculations in that. So let's stop it now. And first, before I stop, I'll just show you. So if I just go in there, I'll just go into the Z menu, maybe in here. I don't have to go some other one. I could say close the SSOP model. Done that. Because it is open as read-only, so there's no question of you saving over. It won't even give you that choice because you're not supposed to change anything. And this one, the SSOP, the save time. Let's save all this file here, whatever we have made some changes to it. So use, again, add-in. Add-ins is the one you use. Always click that, then you get the AZMAT System commands. Otherwise, the AZMAT System commands are not visible. All these commands here at the top, as you can see, they're all Excel commands. And all these icons as well, they're all Excel commands. So you have full access, 100% of all Excel commands you can use while you're using AZMAT System. So in order to use AZMAT System, either you use these control keys, which are specific, and you have to have the right input data available for AZMAT System, or AZMAT System will then ask you for it. Those, so you can use either the control keys, or you can use here, get the AZMAT System menus, use any of these. So menus, so we have the J, AZMAT System main menu. We'll very briefly, quickly go through K, rates environment menu, X menu is XLM environment menu, where all the present value, yield, and so on. G is the bond and FRN calculation menu. So all these bond module commands are up to there, from there to there, and then the bond and FRN models commands are below there. And then these are specific to FRN model calculation there. Always scroll down to the bottom because not all the commands may be visible all the time. M menus, miscellaneous calculation models. So these, for example, save as new transaction, load all transaction. It applies to other calculation models as well, not just SSOP. Whereas SSOP model also has its own, you'll notice, but you can also use those, or you can use these. Or for example, bond calculation model, you'd use these. Risk management commands are in here, Y menu, risk management menu, all these commands and more. You scroll down. That itself is very, very comprehensive. So what you get in AZMAT System is really like 3 or 4 different systems all together. So risk management menu, all these commands are completely different, and they have nothing to do with all these calculations, which I've been looking at now. And they're completely different commands and different area, if you like. These are for you. This menu N is especially developed for the user. So all these are from here to there are Excel macro commands. You can see up to here, actually commands are there. Then these others from A all the way up to J are provided for you as a frame where you can just simply write your own, learn how to add your own commands in the Excel macro. And then below are the Excel VBA commands. Some of them are the same commands, for example. An Excel macro up there and Excel VBA. So you have, for example, change columns to ABC. And if you go up there, change columns to ABC, change columns to numbers, change columns to numbers. So the same command, you will see what the difference is in the programming between Excel macro and Excel VBA. Completely different way of writing the programs. But the end result is exactly the same. So this menu, you will learn how to actually start writing from complete beginners, even if you're a complete beginner, to Excel programming. You will learn in a very short space of time, relatively short space of time, because if you watch these videos, tutorials, you will see step by step, we'll go through how to start writing those particular programs. So let's stop right now. We'll save this time first, add in you save as my data file. So there it is. It's put the current time right now is 5th of July, 11:32 p.m. Note here, 5th of July, 11:09 p.m. This was the date and time of the last calculation on this spreadsheet. Because since then we went to other files, for example, the SSO model and so on. But on this one, the last calculations carried out was at that point, at that time, on that date. So the file has been saved, so I can now actually just simply close particular model. But we would use now here, use the J menu. So quit AZMAT, do not save any files, in which case you'll close the system without saving any file. Because I've already saved my data file, so I can use that quite safely. Or I could say quit AZMAT, means saved and the saved files beginning with user ID, because it may not be the only file. I may have other files which I may have forgotten to save. And or reset, we'll go through all these commands, what they mean later on, and the various other commands. Each of these many we'll go through in detail every single command. But that's for another day. So right now, let's stop. Thank you for your time, and hopefully see you in some other tutorial. So I'm going to close there now.